We're here live on WYSL from noon to 1 p.m. on this Friday. So if you want to call in, participate in the conversation, give us a call, 585-346-3000. Again, that's 585-346-3000. Let me know what's on your mind. What do you want to talk about today? What is an issue that we are getting distracted from right now? What was being ignored because of all the swirl of politics around the presidential race, the vice presidential race? What aren't we talking about that is incredibly important right now? But before we talk about the important issues, and again, I would love for you to call in 585-346-3000. Happy Leif Erikson Day, everyone. Leif Erikson Day, of course, it's today, October 9th. It is the day we commemorate the arrival of one of the first European explorers to land in North America, who landed in Vinland. It's basically part of Newfoundland up in Canada. And Leif Erikson is one of the Norse explorers who landed 500 years before Columbus. Of course, Christopher Columbus, I think that's coming up, Monday? Columbus Day is coming up, which now continues to be more of a controversial holiday. And I was just reading a story earlier about how the mayor of Syracuse is talking about taking down their Columbus statue. But, I do want to acknowledge, too, again, we celebrate Christopher Columbus landing in 1492 in, basically the Caribbean as the discoverer of America. And I know that's a term that's fraught with politics too. Did he discover America? No, of course there were people here. There are many people in North America, Central America, South America, all that. No, Columbus didn't discover America. He realized it was there for Europeans, which kicked off. I think it's an important historical moment to acknowledge more than celebrate. Kicked off, the European colonization of North America. That's obviously led to a lot of where we are today. But I do find it interesting. It's like because I'm a student of history, what we acknowledge and celebrate in the popular historical narrative as the starting point of colonization and the shift to the European settlement of North America. Because again, of course, Leif Erikson, this guy from Iceland, was there 500 years prior, had landed in Newfoundland, who had established colonies. They had established, were able to get some trade going, had interacted, sometimes peacefully, sometimes violently, with the Native Americans who were in the area. But this is a moment that had happened, far sooner. And of course, the difference is that after the settlement of the Norse in that area is that didn't stick around. That it wasn't a permanent settlement, that it would be an additional 500 years later until Europeans would start to establish permanent colonies and all of the stuff that went along with it. And, I have no idea if Andrew's planning on doing a Columbus Day show, but yeah, maybe not. Well, maybe he won't, because I'm going to talk about this now. I don't know. I'm not a big fan. I'm not a big fan of Christopher Columbus, and maybe it's a controversial issue, but Christopher Columbus wasn't a good dude. Like, why do we celebrate this guy? And I know, again, I would like to think of it as more of a acknowledgement of a historical moment at the in the 1490s, of like, this is a major shift point for the history of the world. But Christopher Columbus, I in the midst of all these statue debates, I don't think that there should be statues of this guy. I get that there's other historical stuff going on with why statues of Christopher Columbus exist, but like, he was a bad guy. Like he enslaved people. He had his there's rape. There's a dismemberment of the Native Americans that he had come into contact with. He was looking for gold there, and yeah, he ended up killing just a ton of people. He tried to take 25 natives home with him to Spain after his initial voyage, and only 7 of them made it over. Most of them died on the way back. And He ran into, this the people in the Caribbean, in the islands where he first took his boat, because again, Columbus was, he was expecting, it's a myth that, people thought the world was flat back then. People knew the world was round. People knew that that was already a thing. And in fact, what they said, what the what we call geographers at the time thought was like, oh yeah, the world is about, as big as what we think it is now. They were able to measure that, and Columbus is trying to find a passage to Asia, and they're like, no, you ain't gonna make it. You're not gonna. The world's too big. You're not gonna be able to just find an ocean route to Asia. You're gonna not survive the journey because it's so long. Instead, of course, again, what he ran into was land in North America, and he ran into these indigenous peoples there, and again, he looked at this and he saw an opportunity to take advantage. He tried to conquer this island, and not try. He did conquer the island initially. When we landed there, he took 1,500 men, swords, crossbows, cannons, all this stuff that didn't exist in the in the islands where he landed, and was able to take advantage. And he tried to, well, let's see. I'm reading a history of it, and he demanded that the people there give his men food and gold, and he wanted to have sex with their women, and have sex with their women is just sexually. He ended up, his men raped them. That's what it is, And when they refused, he started dismembering them again, cutting off ears and noses, and disfiguring people, and using them as a warning to others, and then taking over villages and slaughtering them and using them as slaves. And I say all this stuff. Warren, it sounds like I got a call. Warren from Gates is giving me a call.
Warren, hey, how are you today?
Fantastic. How are you?
Good. Hey, I just wanted to share some information, theories, if you will, about Christopher Columbus, since it is a holiday coming up.
Yeah.
But in 1492 was also when Queen Isabella banned all the Jews out of Spain. They had to leave by June, convert to Catholicism, or be killed. It was the start of the Inquisition.
Yeah.
And if you search the records, there is no birth certificate for Christopher Columbus anywhere in Italy. Some people believe he might have been Jewish. Colum is a Jewish name, and some people believe that the Jews in Spain might have paid Queen Isabella, because they were broke at the time, to put them on the ships and bring them to Hispaniola with all the gold they had stockpiled and hid and stored from the fall of the first Israeli temple.
Well, that's very interesting.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I don't know anything about that. About that aspect of history that would certainly provide different motivations. But yeah, I mean that's definitely something that I think might be worth looking up. So I cut you off though. Do you have anything else to add to that?
Say, the Knights of Columbus, fought to lobby to get our Christopher Columbus Day. The history of Christopher Columbus is always clouded, and I just feel like bad. He gets a bad rap for, like you said, killing natives and bringing them back to Spain. And there is a hidden story there that might explain pirates and gold, and be really, really interesting if we could ever find out, some truth. And I just thought I'd share that.
No, that's super fascinating. So, yeah, thank you again, Warren, for that call. I really appreciate it. So I'm gonna have to look up some of that history to find out if there's anything to that, because certainly the the political moment in Spain at the time was something else. Again, Columbus, who is he's kind of honored as like an Italian American, discoverer of America at this point in time. And that's really like where a lot of the holiday and the tradition comes from. Is relatively recently, and it was actually the Knights of Columbus who kind of pushed to make this happen. But yeah, that was interesting. I just think like this time of year, I always like to re-examine why we think about history the way that we do. So thanks again for joining us here on Radio Free New York. I will be back in just a few minutes. Talk to you soon.
Your business relies on computers and technology to operate. Slow, unreliable networks and servers can cause unplanned downtime and affect your bottom line. The experts at Simple Tech Innovations are here to help. Their preventative maintenance program ensures that your computers and network are kept up to date and monitored for any issues, keeping your business running smoothly. They also help clients achieve HIPAA, PCI, and New York State cybersecurity compliance to keep your network safe and secure. Whatever your business IT needs are, Simple Tech Innovations should be your first call. They've won the Best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. Call them today for a free consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. Simple Tech Innovations.
Escape from the everyday to a getaway at Woodcliff Hotel and Spa. Woodcliff features elegantly appointed accommodations, creative cuisine, themed suites, full-service spa Elon, and is Rochester's best venue for outdoor wedding receptions overlooking the city skyline. Woodcliff Hotel and Spa, where the experience is extraordinary. Located in Fairport, call 585-381-4000 or visit woodcliffhotelspa.com.
A reminder from Abate Monroe County. American bikers aim toward education. Distracted driving is dangerous, so pull over and eat. Don't try to read your mail and newspaper, and stay off your cell phone. Make a mental note to be more alert, making it a habit to expect the unexpected. Remember to look twice. Save a life. Train yourself to watch for motorcycles which are harder to see. Join Abate, and your family will be protected with a free $4,000 accident policy. Ride safe. Ride free. Ride often. Abate. If you ride with us. Google Abate Monroe County.
Why do businesses choose to move their website from Wix and Squarespace to Simple Tech Innovations? Maybe it's their excellent customer service or attention to detail. Maybe it's their ability to give a truly customized solution. Or perhaps they just like the fact that Simple Tech is a local small business that builds great relationships with its clients. Whatever the reason may be, you can rest assured knowing that the local team at Simple Tech has your best interest in mind when building or updating your website. They're hands-on and love helping customers achieve their goals. But don't take my word for it. They've won the Best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. If your website doesn't match your dreams or isn't achieving your goals, give the professionals at Simple Tech Innovations a call today for a consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. Simple Tech Innovations.
You're listening to Radio Free New York.
Welcome back to Radio Free New York. I'm Kevin Wilson, your host for today. Thanks so much for joining us, all of our friends who are listening on WYSL. Again, we're live here noon to 1, and thank you for the phone call, Warren, in the previous segment. Give us a call, 585-346-3000. You know, I'm just kind of musing on history this hour, because why not? I want to. But we're going to be live to 1 o'clock. Again, 585-346-3000. And thanks, of course, to our friends who are listening over at WACK, the rebroadcast out in Newark, and WENY, the Patriot down in the Southern Tier, and our friends online, even our friends who are looking for apparently a SpongeBob video. That's the comments I'm getting. I was looking for SpongeBob videos about Leif Erikson Day because there's an episode of SpongeBob. So thanks y'all for listening. Thanks for coming across this. I hope you stick around. Apparently this episode has good SEO on a day-to-day, so yeah, apparently I chose the right name for that. But stick around. We're talking history. We're talking politics. We're talking that kind of the politics of like how we discuss the history of colonialization and discovery today. Just because again I like history and I want to talk about it. It's Leif Erikson Day. It's interesting that I think that's more interesting from a historical perspective, and I think about why didn't the the settlements that were created out of the Norse explorers who went, to Iceland and Greenland, and then kind of northern Canada and eastern Canada. At that point, why didn't they stick around? Why didn't they have a larger impact on colonial efforts at the time? But I guess that it's probably more a product of where Europe was during that time period. At close to the year 1000, Europe was kind of a mess in the aftermath of like the Roman Empire. That's just kind of the introduction. Well, not really the introduction. That's kind of the Dark Ages in that time. So the Europeans didn't really have the resources to be able to go out and explore and build international trade routes. Like, it just wasn't there for most European countries. So there's no age of discovery that followed the Norse settlements in Northern America. And then Columbus rediscovers the North American continent. And I got a comment over to break too about mentioning Amerigo Vespucci too, who is an Italian merchant explorer and navigator from Florence, and that supposedly that's kind of where America, the name, came from, is from him, just because at the maps at the time, that became some of the more prominent publications of the kind of discovery and exploration of the New World was associated with that name. So supposedly there's a connection with Amerigo Vespucci and the names of North America. But I got to be honest, I haven't looked much into that. I remember that's one of those things I remember mentioned in school way back when, but that wasn't my main study of history in the United States. My main study of history, and I've talked about this on the show before, is the 19th century history. So, that's really more the area that, I focused on. 19th century, a little bit, like colonial, early American history, of course, lots of studying U.S. history. But, again, we developed this holiday around Christopher Columbus. Now I'll kind of keep connecting it back to modern themes. I'm gonna jump back and forth a little bit. We developed this holiday around Christopher Columbus not that long ago. Is through FDR. I think that's where it ended up coming in the 1930s. Again, Knights of Columbus pushed for this in the 1930s to make Columbus Day a national holiday, and I think there's some history prior to that too, as a celebration of Catholicism, is what the Knights of Columbus are pushing for, and Italian American heritage, and we kind of see that legacy today. As I discussed in the previous segment, I'm not sure that is a good thing to celebrate. I think it's a good thing to acknowledge. Like, this is again a life-changing or a world-changing moment at the clash of civilizations that existed between Europe and the indigenous peoples of North America, and if you want to dive into some of that stuff more, there's a great book. I think it's 1491. It is a great book that kind of explores the civilizations that existed in North America prior to contact with Europeans, and how they existed as complex and often conflicting entities who were, had their own interesting histories in their own right. That was a little bit lost because of both the disease and genocide and colonization that happened after European contact. It sounds like we've got a call in. John from Rochester. John.
Hey, Kevin. How are you?
Doing great. How are you doing, John? What's on your mind?
I'm doing pretty good. Yeah. I'm listening to your show, and Columbus. Yeah, Columbus and Cortez, some of those conquerors did some brutal things. In fact, I wonder if AOC is related to Cortez, the conqueror.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
That would be interesting to see. But I was going to bring up the point, you kind of addressed it a little bit in the last minute or two, about the Native Americans. They were brutal also to their own, to other Native Americans in tribal warfare. They had slave trades and concubine and everything else, and they were as brutal as the Cortez and some of the Europeans. You can take it a step further. Africa, the slave trade in Africa was primarily done by blacks in Africa, conquering tribes and factions that conquered other tribes, and they sold slaves to the Europeans. Muslims in northern Africa. I read there's a couple authors that have done some historians. Paul Kengar he's got his doctorate. He's a professor in University in Pennsylvania. And William Federer, who's a historian. They've done some writings on the slave trade that the Muslims were involved with throughout a lot of the history, and in fact, one of them brought out the point there were 800,000 Europeans that were slaves in the Muslim northern Africa. So this could go on and on and on. The Incas, I think, where Cortez, I think, was. I don't think committed genocide on the Incas or the Mayans, but they themselves, those tribes, the Incas and the Mayans, were practiced human sacrifices. I mean, you go throughout history, the brutality of conquering nations. Muhammad was a genocidal maniac, and I think William Federer did a book on Muhammad and the Muslim conquest, from I think 600 A.D. Anyway, I guess it goes both ways here. I mean, it's a bad term to use, progressive society that looks to discover new things and new countries have committed brutality, and that goes with the indigenous people. That goes for the Europeans, etc.
Yeah, no, John, you're right, and what's interesting in like the history of colonization as it's kind of presented by usually the left is it ends up being such a one-sided narrative. Like here are the Europeans coming in and like imposing their culture on others and dominating, and it's a lot more complicated than that, right? Particularly like in the conquering of like colonization of North America and Central America too with the Aztec peoples, Cortez. The way the Aztecs saw it is like, here are these folks who are coming in and they want to make some noise. How can we use them to crush our enemies, right? Like, so they would try to play the Europeans off of the other tribes. Say, hey, how can we make this alliance too? They were more concerned about what was going on around them than about like a long-term threat of colonization from Europeans initially. And that's how a lot of colonial projects started. It was just like, all right, so how can we take advantage of this situation? Well, these guys say that they'll buy slaves off of us, so like we can go and conquer this other tribe or group and enslave them and sell them to these guys who are giving us weapons in exchange. It's a great thing for that. They thought of it as a good deal. So again, thank you for the call, John. I appreciate that and adding some complexity to our history. We'll be back here on Radio Free New York in just a few minutes. Thanks again for joining us.
Up for your freedom. AM 1040 Avon, Rochester, FM 92.1 Rochester, and FM 95.5 Spencerport.
Here's the latest forecast from the News 10 NBC Weather Center for today. Looking at some beautiful sunshine out there. Temperatures will warm up into the mid and upper 60s. A great afternoon coming your way tonight. Mainly clear. We'll stay in the 50s this evening. Temps will rise into the 60s overnight. Very warm weather Saturday into the mid maybe upper 70s. Keep an eye to the sky in the afternoon. Could be a shower or thunderstorm. I'm Rich Cornelia, WYSL.
This fall is a great time to shop at Victor Chevrolet. Come see how easy it is to do business with us. Winter driving will be safe and fun when you lease a 2020 Equinox front-wheel drive LS. Just $179 a month for 24 months. Or enjoy the security of a tough and roomy 2021 Blazer LS. Lease for only $139 a month for 24 months. Lease a 2020 Chevy Trax LS all-wheel drive for just $98 a month for 24 months.
For Equinox, Trax, or Trailblazer, must have current lease and household. $2,500 cash or trade. First payment, tax, acquisition, and DMV fees are all due at signing for all leases.
Prefer to buy? Save big when you buy a 2019 Trax LT all-wheel drive with convenience package, power drive seat, and keyless entry and start. MSRP $26,145.
Selling for only $19,215.
$229 a month for 84 months with approved credit. This fall, find new roads at Victor Chevrolet, Route 96 in Victor. Visit victorchevrolet.com.
WYSL Opinion, the election, and the politicization of COVID-19. Despite mounting evidence the pandemic is waning and the controversy over real death and infection stats, Joe Biden is on record favoring a national mask mandate.
It's about saving Americans' lives. So let's institute a mask mandate nationwide, starting immediately, and we will save lives.
Not only are totalitarian orders about masks apparently a good idea, so is shutting the country down again.
In order to keep the country running and moving and the economy growing and people employed, you have to deal with the virus.
So if the scientists say shut it down?
I would shut it down. I would listen to the scientists.
Because 2/3 of us are dead already anyway?
Complications from COVID-19, which are well beyond what they should be. It's estimated that 200 million people have died.
Bye-bye, careers and businesses. Vote for freedom instead. I'm Bob Savage.
Why do businesses choose to move their website from Wix and Squarespace to Simple Tech Innovations? Maybe it's their excellent customer service or attention to detail. Maybe it's their ability to give a truly customized solution. Or perhaps they just like the fact that Simple Tech is a local small business that builds great relationships with its clients. Whatever the reason may be, you can rest assured knowing that the local team at Simple Tech has your best interest in mind when building or updating your website. They're hands-on and love helping customers achieve their goals. But don't take my word for it. They've won the best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. If your website doesn't match your dreams or isn't achieving your goals, give the professionals at Simple Tech Innovations a call today for a consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. Simple Tech Innovations.
We're in one of the strongest markets we've seen in a decade. Now is the time to make your move. Our team at Sharon Corbett Realty is ready to help you prepare for this thriving market. Whether you're looking to buy, sell, or build, the opportunities are endless. Buyers can afford more with interest rates at record lows. Sellers can get more money than ever for their houses in the seller's market. And our builders can design your dream home. We're here to guide you through the process so you can capitalize on these opportunities too. Visit us at SharonQ.com and call us today at 900-1111.
Music, the universal language of all living beings. Why does music move us to joy or to tears? Experience what artists, producers, and engineers wanted you to hear. Audio Renaissance exists to honor musicians and their art. In these challenging times, the solace of music is more important than ever. Audio Renaissance specializes in high-performance audio gear for discriminating listeners. Phone Audio Renaissance at 334-7676 today.
Hey, would you like to save money on your insurance? We all do. That's why I get my insurance from Lawrence Associates. They save me money on my home, auto, and landlord insurance. Do what I did and give them a call at 227-7500, Lawrence Associates Insurance.
Avon Gun and Hunting Supply, a locally owned and operated gun shop specializing in pre-owned firearms and repairs. Get your rifle, shotgun, or pistol serviced and tuned before you take it to the field. Open Tuesday through Saturday. Avon Gun and Hunting Supply, East Main Street, next to the Bank of Castile.
You're listening to Radio Free New York.
Welcome back to Radio Free New York. I'm Kevin Wilson, your host for today. Thanks again for joining us again. We are live here on WYSL from 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. Well, the rest of the hour. Thank you so much for the call. calls that we've gotten so far. Thank you, John, for the call in the previous segments. And thanks to the folks who are listening online, too. The folks who are listening on YouTube, on the Andrew C. Hollister Facebook page, and the Radio Free New York Facebook page. Thanks for the comments and everyone coming in. And I got a comment from Matt, too, who said, I suggest the book Guns, Germs, and Steel by Jared Diamond. And yeah, I was actually going to mention that right after I mentioned the 1491 book. I was going to mention that one, too, which is another great and interesting book in terms of how colonial history operated in North America, because it kind of, maybe John was making this point, maybe I'm just making this point, is that, I think that history as it relates to Columbus and colonization is kind of a little bit more complicated than you're learning in both the, in history books in high school and the left-wing narratives that you're going to get in things like the 1619 Project, right? Like, I encourage you to read books like that. I think Gun, Germs, and Steel is a great book. And one of the fascinating things about, well, fascinating and horrible things about the colonial project is, the colonization of North America is that, as Europeans were coming in and settling and trying to build colonies, is a lot of them were really not successful. Like, it's kind of not surprising that, like, the colonies related to Leif Erikson, because again, happy Leif Erikson Day, they didn't stick around for very long. It was tough, and Europeans didn't have, like, the agricultural techniques or the know-how to be able to survive in North America, where things are very, very different. It's different growing crops, it's different surviving a winter, it's different surviving, if you're in the Caribbean or South, the climate is just a different state. You have new stuff to deal with, new diseases to deal with. And in the kind of early days of colonization, what happened with a lot of the Native Americans is that a lot of them, like the European diseases that ended up coming to North America from, those initial discovery periods from Spain and Portugal and things like that, is they like wiped out just a huge portion of the population, right? Like the way I've read about it before is, it's like, imagine the movie like I Am Legend, like where like most of your friends and family are just gone, and that was before they had actually seen and come into contact with like Europeans themselves. Just did smallpox would like wipe through these villages, and they would totally disappear. And then it was shortly afterwards that that Europeans would come in and start to colonize these areas, and they would come in and be like, wow, this is really well maintained for for an area that has barely anyone living in it. And so they were kind of confused, but like, imagine like these complex civilizations that existed for, hundreds of years in some cases. And suddenly, they went from tens of thousands of people in an area to like dozens or hundreds. And even, despite that happening, it was still not a foregone conclusion that Europeans at the time were the best equipped technologically to be able to successfully colonize these areas. Like, you think about the old gun technology that existed back in this day, and it wasn't necessarily better, than a bow and arrow at the time. It wasn't necessarily like a better battle strategy to have a firearm in this time period. And thinking like specifically like the 1600s and early 1700s, that Native Americans and these East Coast tribes won a lot of the battles and successfully drove European colonies out. And what would happen with other European colonies, and Roanoke is one of the most famous ones, is that the Europeans just kind of got sick of like, we're cold, we're hungry, this ain't going well. Let's see what we can do. And then they just kind of, it looks like they just kind of joined the Native American groups at the time. And again, as we were talking about in the last segment, the Native American groups, like, they weren't initially all that worried about the Europeans. They're just like, all right, so these weirdos are coming here. They don't know how to feed themselves, but they do have, steel. They do have like some of this technology because the indigenous people of North America at the time were still essentially in the Stone Age. And I don't mean that to be disparaging. I mean, like, literally a lot of them didn't have advanced metal technology that Europeans had at the time. So there's some valuable goods in there. There's, between, steel and alcohol and, a few other, technologies that hadn't proliferated on the North American continent yet. There's value in trading with Europeans. There's value in building alliances with Europeans because they had access to these goods that did provide some technological advantages, right? And so what they would do is these tribes would build the alliances, and because, again, they were more concerned about, the tribe next door, their historical enemies. They're more worried that either that other group would form an alliance with Europeans, or they would harm them as they had in the past. So these Native American groups would, kind of be pitted against one another because of historical rivalries, and that made it harder for North Americans to, it made it easier for Europeans to ultimately colonize North America. And I only say this too, not to necessarily cast blame. I just think when I hear like left-wing narratives about that are one-sided, that it's Europeans acting upon indigenous people, I think it's kind of patronizing to do that. And again, and I just say this as a student of history, and I think that history is often more fraught and intertwined with conflict. It's not a clean, neat, straightforward narrative. Again, there are lots of people, lots of individuals acting with various motivations, either for money, for revenge, for power, whatever it is. I think it's worth examining the complex machinations behind what built the country that we are today, because I think it does tell us something about where we are today, about how we got started. And now there's, again, this, at least among some groups of people, a desire to have like a historical, and maybe not reckoning is the right word, but at least a recognition of the genocide and colonization of this. But I don't think that we should toss out the agency that indigenous people had in this process too. But, and that kind of gets me back. I do want to pull it back up to, again, we're coming up on Columbus Day next week. Again, it's Leif Erikson Day today, but there's not as many statues of Leif Erikson. I don't think anyone's asking to pull down statues of Leif Erikson. Maybe there is. I don't know. If I have any friends up in Canada, where I think there's a few more statues of Leif Erikson and people are asking to pull them down, I'd be curious as to why. But Columbus, I spent a good portion of the first segment talking about how terrible he is. Not a good guy. And again, I'd be curious. Do you think that we should be pulling down statues of Columbus? Because I'm kind of like, I don't know. I don't want to spend any money on it. But do we need to continue honoring this guy? I don't know. I don't think he's a good guy. So Syracuse is apparently thinking of renaming Columbus Circle and taking down the statue of Columbus. And you have other cities around the country who are thinking about doing similar things. I think there was a possibly slightly less serious proposal of renaming Columbus, Ohio, after Guy Fieri, and calling it Flavortown, USA. Which, I don't know, it has a nice ring to it. Maybe that's a better name. But I do look at this and I do think, what does a statue celebrate someone? And how do we put a historical figure like Columbus, who there's documented evidence that he did terrible things? How do we put a figure like that in context, acknowledge the complexity of the history, the moments of 1492 and European discovery and settlement and colonization in North America? How do we put that all in context and have a good, nuanced, sometimes complicated discussion about how that led us to where we're here, why we are the way we are today, and then are there still continued injustices related to that? I'm open to that conversation. We've got another comment again from Matt. So, throughout history, humans have been generally pretty terrible to one another. Life is rough. Yeah, that's kind of how it is. Throughout most of history, people were incredibly terrible to each other. Do we do anything about it? Do we have any obligation to do anything now? Or do we just have an obligation to be better from this point forward? Give me a call if you have any thoughts on that. 585-346-3000. Again, you're listening to Radio Free New York. We're going to be back in just a few minutes. Talk to you soon.
Why do businesses choose to move their website from Wix and Squarespace to SimpleTech Innovations? Maybe it's their excellent customer service or attention to detail. Maybe it's their ability to give a truly customized solution. Or perhaps they just like the fact that SimpleTech is a local small business that builds great relationships with its clients. Whatever the reason may be, you can rest assured knowing that the local team at SimpleTech has your best interest in mind when building or updating your website. They're hands-on and love helping customers achieve their goals. But don't take my word for it. They've won the best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. If your website doesn't match your dreams or isn't achieving your goals, give the professionals at SimpleTech Innovations a call today for a consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. SimpleTech Innovations.
If you're looking to market and grow your business, make new business connections, and give back to the community in a meaningful way, consider joining the Greece Regional Chamber of Commerce. We're the largest suburban chamber in Monroe County, and we offer networking, education, marketing, insurance, and advocacy. You do not need to live or work in Greece to join. Our members come from throughout the region. In short, we're better together, and together, we're moving business forward. Visit greecechamber.org or call 585-227-7272 to join today.
A reminder from Abate Monroe County. American bikers aim toward education. Distracted driving is dangerous, so pull over and eat. Don't try to read your mail and newspaper, and stay off your cell phone. Make a mental note to be more alert, making it a habit to expect the unexpected. Remember to look twice. Save a life. Train yourself to watch for motorcycles which are harder to see. Join Abate, and your family will be protected with a free $4,000 accident policy. Ride safe. Ride free. Ride often. Abate. If you ride with us. Google Abate Monroe County.
Your business relies on computers and technology to operate. Slow, unreliable networks and servers can cause unplanned downtime and affect your bottom line. The experts at SimpleTech Innovations are here to help. Their preventative maintenance program ensures that your computers and network are kept up to date and monitored for any issues, keeping your business running smoothly. They also help clients achieve HIPAA, PCI, and New York State cybersecurity compliance to keep your network safe and secure. Whatever your business IT needs are, SimpleTech Innovation should be your first call. They've won the best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. Call them today for a free consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. SimpleTech Innovations.
Radio Free New York.
Welcome back to Radio Free New York. Thanks again for joining us. I'm Kevin Wilson, your host for today. And yeah, so no fake news Friday today because I don't have a Friday co-host. So someone find me a good, reliable Friday co-host I can have on so I can do fake news Friday again. I mean, if y'all want to call in and stump me with that, give us a call, 585-346-3000. Call in. If you have an item you think you can stump me with a fake news item, give me a call. Well, I'll take a swing at it. Why not? 585-346-3000. Tell me a headline, and I'll try to guess if it's real or fake. But I'll just wrapping up the discussion around this again around Leif Erikson Day, the Columbus Day, colonization, all that stuff. Do we have any obligation to? Well, certainly acknowledge the history of what happened in those periods, but also anything to do about in the future. I'm going to leave that open-ended. I'll let you guys think about what we ought to do about that. If there's any obligation to, beyond the acknowledgement of what happened with Native American genocide, because that's certainly a fact that happened, versus making sure that we don't erase the agency of the indigenous peoples in those discussions, and what European colonization looked like in practice, both from like an English perspective that led to the creation of the United States, and from like the earlier Spanish and Portuguese perspectives. But I want to talk about a New York State issue, because I feel like I've been ignoring it for a few days. Well, not ignoring it. I haven't brought it up on this show yet. But I think it's kind of important. It's interesting to see what's going on. There's a clash of kind of cultural and religious liberty happening in New York City right now, and mostly it's around kind of the Orthodox Jewish community, and New York City's starting to see another surge in COVID cases. So there's just, Governor Cuomo's been going on about how New York State's going up. It's really, so far, most of New York State, this region, where I live in Rochester, and, where the station is based in Livingston County, not really a huge upsurge in COVID yet. But in places like Brooklyn, it's starting to pop up again. So, and hopefully it stays contained, it doesn't get out of control. So, of course, what was Governor Cuomo do when this is starting to pop up again? Was Bill de Blasio do, the mayor of New York City? Well, of course they start cracking down on things. They start cracking down on schools. They're starting they're threatening to shutter synagogues and churches, and other congregations, religious congregations, other religious gatherings. If they continue to gather together and not obey the governor's rules. And the governor's going to make the case like, well, we need to take this draconian action in order to stop the spread of COVID and save lives, right? But again, where does that come into conflict with, don't you have a right to be able to go into church? Don't you have a right to be able to worship the way you choose? Isn't that a fundamental part of our freedom of expression, a right enshrined in the First Amendment? And so because of these crackdowns and kind of threats of crackdowns, there started to been a little bit more pushback from these communities down in New York. There's I guess so the New York State came up with kind of like three new categories. There's like a red, orange, yellow categories, and saying that like there's here's where we are if you're at a certain infection level. We're going to go back to takeout only dining, that houses of worship will be closed, or that there will be limited, and I think in the mid zone they're limited to like 10 people, which you can't really do fellowship, or you can't really worship in those situations, right? People would have to go back to virtual stuff. And again, people are pushing back against this. They're starting to say like, we can't do this. We can't run our religious services. There's percent like I guess for certain types of religious gatherings and the Orthodox community, they need 11 people to be able to do this. So obviously limiting it to 10 people doesn't work. So, and again, audience, folks listening at home or in your car, and you have a thought on this, where does the state have any legitimate role in trying to ban gatherings, going to church in this? I'm doing this podcast. I know many of you have strong feelings about this, because I've heard them. But does the state have any legitimate role, and what should the state do? Or should state just say, no, you have a right to worship. You have the right to gather and worship in the way of your choosing, and the state can't come in and do this. But now again, down in New York, there's starting to be protests. And in New York, it's wild too, because the other thing happening there is in some of these neighborhoods too, they've like only recently, I found out, opened up some of the playgrounds. We talked about it, I don't know. Goodness, this might have been like back in like May or June or something. They literally at one point welded the gates shut to playgrounds in some of these neighborhoods in New York, so kids couldn't go out and play outside, which is wild. Again, and what we know now is too, again, if you're outside, it's probably fine. Things might get tough when everyone if you need to gather with people in the next few months, you need to go inside now. Or, at least I've seen some restaurants are buying like heaters and whatnot. But I'm not sure that outdoor heaters are going to really cut it in February in this part of New York. But still, I think we need to look at whether or not I'm not sure how people are going to react to a shutdown unless there's a significant increase in the number of people getting sick. I think people are sick and tired and frustrated, and I mean in the sense that like people are so beyond frustrated with lockdown culture that and frustrated with the inconsistency and arbitrariness of the lockdown orders coming from the Cuomo administration, that they're just not going to comply. Even if it is a good idea, they're not going to comply. I think, and I've said this again, the Cuomo administration has eroded the trust of the people in the state. They've made it so difficult for people to take the Cuomo advisors on good faith that they are having our best interests in mind, that this is the best way to do things, that we need to continue shutting down businesses, that we need to continue shutting down house of worship, that there isn't a safe way for people to be able to gather. And again, most people are trying to find safe ways to gather. They're either, they'll wear masks if that's what you want to do, or they'll stay far apart, or do whatever. Again, it's the one-size-fits-all solution, and it's the arbitrariness of this that kills us. And again, I don't think there's been any change in this too, on the Bill Stadium thing, which still grinds my gears. But it's so interesting because we're, it looked like maybe for a minute there's Governor Cuomo is gonna come in and say yes, you can have Bills fans in the stadium. Miami, meanwhile, the AFC rival, football thing, but they're able to have full fans in stadiums. They're able to open up all the way. New York State, no, still not going to happen. Now, of course, teams got to actually play the games. The Titans broke their protocols, I guess, and now a bunch of them got sick, and now the game's rescheduled for Tuesday. Hopefully, maybe, we'll see. I don't know. I'm a bit salty, but I enjoy being able to watch football, and I'm a bit grumpy that the NFL teams couldn't get it together to be able to not get themselves sick or not isolate themselves when they work get sick. So I'm frustrated with many other people at the Titans right now. I want to be able to keep the football thing going because, again, it's about personal responsibility. And I'll bring it back to this again. I think people can exercise personal responsibility, and then when you break that and when you put others in danger, there should be significant consequences for that. And I think that with the Titans, I think they should just forfeit. Again, I know you guys don't care about sports that much, but I think they should just forfeit. But in New York State, I think that we need the freedom to be able to figure out safe ways to interact and worship and operate our businesses and get the government out of the way in this situation. All right, we're out of time for the week. Thanks again for joining us here on Radio Free New York. We'll be back next week. Have a wonderful weekend, everyone.